Alright, so in this problem, I have x to the power 6 minus x to the power 3 is equal to 2. So I'm going to first start by subtracting 2 on both sides. So now I have x to the power 6 minus x to the power 3 minus 2 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to rewrite 6 here as 3 times 2. So now I have x to the power of 3 times 2 minus x to the power of 3 minus 2 is equal to 0. Now if I have something in the form a to the power of m times n, this is equal to a to the power of m to the power of n. So x to the power of 3 times 2, that's going to equal x to the power of 3 to the power of 2. Now I have this minus x to the power of 3 minus 2 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to let x to the power of 3 equal y. So now I have y squared minus y minus 2 is equal to 0. Now to solve this, I'm actually going to factor this out. So y squared minus y minus 2, this is the same thing as y squared minus 2y plus y minus 2, because negative 2y plus y, that's negative y. And now if I factor out y, I get y times y minus 2 plus 1 times y minus 2 is equal to 0. Now if I factor out y minus 2, I have y minus 2 times y plus 1 is equal to 0. Meaning y is equal to either 2 or negative 1. Now remember how we set x to the power of 3 equal to y. So now I have x to the power of 3 is equal to 2, and I have x to the power of 3 is equal to negative 1. So first off, for x to the power of 3 is equal to negative 1, I'm actually going to start by adding 1 on both sides. So I have x to the power of 3 plus 1 is equal to 0. Now this is the same thing as x plus 1 times x squared minus x plus 1 is equal to 0. And this gives me two equations. I have x plus 1 is equal to 0, meaning x is equal to negative 1, so this is one solution of x. And I have x squared minus x plus 1 is equal to 0. And if you actually go ahead and plug this into the quadratic formula, I'm actually not going to waste your guys' time and do that. You should get 1 plus or minus the square root of the square root of 3i over 2. So these are two more solutions of x. Now, right here, I have x to the power of 3 equals 2. This is pretty straightforward. All I have to do is take the cube root on both sides. So I have the cube root of x to the power of 3 is equal to the cube root of 2. The cube root of x to the power of 3 is x, and the cube root of 2, that's simply, we just keep it in that form. So I have x is equal to the cube root of 2. Alright, so in this problem, I have x minus 4 to the power of 4 is equal to x to the power of 4. So to solve this, I'm going to first rewrite 4 here as 2 times 2. So now I have x minus 4 to the power of 2 times 2 is equal to x to the power of 4. Now, if I have something in the form a to the power of m times n, this is equal to a to the power of m to the power of n. So in this case, I have a to the power of 2 times 2, so I can rewrite this as x minus 4 to the power of 2 to the power of 2. And this is equal to x to the power of 4. Now I'm going to subtract x to the power of 4 on both sides. So now I have x minus 4 squared to the power of 2 minus x to the power of 4 is equal to 0. And x to the power of 4, I'm going to rewrite this as the same thing. X to the power of 2 to the power of 2. Now, if I have something in the form a squared minus b squared, this is equal to a plus b times a minus b. So in this case, a is x minus 4 squared, and b is x squared. So now I have x minus 4 squared plus x squared times x minus 4 squared minus x squared. And x minus 4 squared, that's simply equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. So I have this plus x squared, and over here I have x squared minus 8x plus 16 minus x squared. So in this case, these two cancel out, and in this case, these two add up. So I have 2x squared minus 8x plus 16 times negative 8x plus 16. Remember, this is all equal to 0. So this gives me two equations. I have 2x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0, and I have negative 8x plus 16 is equal to 0. So for negative 8x plus 16 equals 0, I add 8x on both sides, so I get 16 is equal to 8x, meaning x is equal to 2. Now for 2x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I get x squared minus 4x plus 8 is equal to 0. So now to find the value of this equation, I have to use the quadratic formula, which I'm not going to waste your guys' time by doing, but if you end up solving it, you get x is equal to 4 plus or minus, you get x is equal to 2 plus or minus 2i. So that's two more solutions. So these are my three solutions to this problem. Alright, so in this problem, I have 3 to the power of x times 5 to the power of x squared is equal to 15. So now the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 5. So now I have 3 to the power of x times 5 to the power of x squared over 5 is equal to 15 divided by 5, which is 3. Now if I have something in the form a to the power of m over a to the power of n, this is equal to a to the power of m minus n. So in this case, 5 is the same thing as 5 to the power of 1, and 5 to the power of x squared over 5 to the power of 1, that's going to equal 5 to the power of x squared minus 1, which is equal to 3. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to the power of x. So then these two cancel out, and 3 to the power of 1 over 3 to the power of x, that's the same thing as 3 to the power of 1 minus x. Now, if I take the log on both sides, I get log 5 to the power of x squared minus 1 is equal to log 3 to the power of 1 minus x. And if I have something in the form log a to the power of b, I can actually move this exponent b to the front. So this can equal b times log a. So in this case, I have x squared minus 1 times log 5 is equal to 1 minus x times log 3. Now, if I divide both sides by log 5, I get x squared minus 1 times log base 5 of 5 is equal to 1 minus x times log base 5 of 3. So if you divide two logarithms, the logarithm that's being divided by, that's going to turn into the base. Now log base of 5, that's obviously equal to 1. So now I have x squared minus 1 is equal to 1 minus x times log base 5 of 3. And now if I subtract 1 minus x times log base 5 of 3 on both sides, these two cancel out, and I get x squared minus 1 minus 1 minus x times log base 5 of 3 is equal to 0. And now x squared minus 1, this is the same thing as x squared minus 1 squared, which is the same thing as x plus 1 times x minus 1. So I have this minus 1 minus x times log base 5 of 3 is equal to 0. And now if I factor out x minus 1, I get x minus 1 times x plus 1 plus log base 5 of 3 is equal to 0. So now this gives me two equations. I have x minus 1 equals 0, meaning x is equal to 1, and I have x plus 1 plus log base 5 of 3 is equal to 0, which means that x is equal to negative 1 minus log base 5 of 3. So these are my two solutions.